Hey everybody, welcome back to Awakening Earth. Today I've got a really special guest called Autumn, and she's from Oracle of the Rose. Hi Autumn,
Hi, James.
how you
Thanks for
doing?
having me here today.
Yeah, thank you too. So I'm really excited that you're here because we're going to talk about loads and loads of interesting things. The different things that you do, and also your background, your interests, and then talk about sort of ETs and all this kind of thing that we all love talking about on this channel. So thank you so much for joining us. So you're a psychic oracle, a channeler, open contactee, content creator, and practitioner of magic.
Yes, that is
That
a good list of what I'm offering at the moment. Yep.
so that really caught my eye, practitioner of magic. Tell us more. What does that mean?
So, basically, I'm one of many people who are currently trying to revive older traditions of European witchcraft. And also, a lot of us are kind of putting our own spin on witchcraft, like a more modern spin, more modern understanding and perspective. I would consider myself a gray witch, which means that I primarily want to use my witchcraft to help others or to offer positivity and healing. But I do understand that there are times, especially when it comes to dealing with people who are very intent on hurting other people,
Mm,
that it can be helpful to understand the darker side of magic, o- mostly just so that you can prepare yourself for what a darker practitioner might send your way. It also makes it easier to remove curses and to stop negative magic when you understand how it works, and it
mm.
makes it easier to do protection as well. So
Would
that's
you
a little synopsis of that. Yeah.
so would you say then that sort of practicing magic is really like a, I suppose you could say maybe a permission slip to sort of getting to know more of ourselves and all of the abilities that we kind of probably innately have, but have really lost contact with over the last few thousand years, given the way that society has developed, all the limiting beliefs that many of us have, and so on. Would you say it's a great permission slip towards sort of rediscovering the true potential that humans have?
Oh, definitely. I think there's ancient technologies that are consciousness based that humans, like early humans, had access to and
Mm,
had an understanding, whether that was something that they developed on their own or were given that understanding from ETs. And I think getting like tapping back into that ancient wisdom is really essential for us moving into the future. I do feel that not everything from the past needs to be brought forward into the future because the future is going to be very different, especially in terms of um, not having to deal with scarcity in the same way that our ancestors did. But I do feel that there's a lot that can be gained by looking to our ancestors and the traditions that they practiced.
so what sort of traditions, can you give some examples of what they might involve and the purpose?
Well, when I think about these particular traditions, I'm primarily thinking about humans prior to agriculture. So humans when they were nomadic and they were um, put in a position where it was in their best interest to be in close relationship with nature. And so it would be like more shamanic types of traditions and rituals where they understood that the planet was alive and that everything had a spirit, every rock and tree and creature, kind of like that song in Pocahontas. Um, and so they did all sorts of things to try to communicate with nature and understand it better and use it as a way to help them with surviving more easily in the environment that they were in.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, no, I very much can feel sort of listening to what you're saying that it's like we've, in a way, the way things are going now, you have the idea of science and all of the things like the quantum world that it's discovering. Um, Perhaps there are some correlations between obviously what's worded very differently in the scientific world, but in terms of sort of the underlying nature of perception, of consciousness, and our connection with everything, it sort of sounds like what you're talking about there is very much where we're headed now, albeit under a different guise, different name.
Yes, I think, we humans, by exploring technology, we started to explore a whole new realm of consciousness by creating things like agricultural technologies and, you know, construction technologies and even the early technologies. And so I think um, we're going to rediscover this understanding of our connection with nature, but from a new perspective, from all the wisdom that we've gained from exploring technology. And I think that's going to continue forward into the future too, of what it really means to create, but from a perspective that's connected with the earth.
In terms of like other connotations think of when someone mentions magic and witches and stuff are the ideas of like incantations, spells, power words, manifestation, perhaps specific kinds of manifestation, and also using sort of certain methodologies, perhaps to remove certain energetic connections from us that we perhaps choose not to have. Maybe they're not of the most positive intent. Can what can I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, what sort of uses does the idea of magic, um, as we carry forward these old ideas and reframe them into the new world, what sort of usage can come from them? How can we apply it?
Well, I think it's really interesting to think about it in terms of like it being a permission slip. And I
Yeah.
find it fascinating, like when I found Bashar's material and I heard him using the term permission slip, it was just a new name to put into my toolbox that I had already been exploring. I was thinking in terms of like, oh, this is like a bridge, or this is like a stepping stone to manifestation. It's kind of a good way to look at it. It's going through acts and motions that help the egoic mind to get on board and fully believe in the manifestation that you're trying to create or whatever magical thing you're trying to create. It's just when humans take physical actions, it really helps assist the mind with understanding that, oh, something's happening, something is coming to fruition.
Yeah, and I guess it's all the more powerful in terms of what we bring into our lives if it is aligned with our true, larger multidimensional nature, its themes that it is exploring in this life as well. Part of the reason why we chose to be incarnated in certain countries, in certain families, with certain situations, and so on and so forth. So if what we're doing is in alignment with all of that, all it's like opens all the doors, right? And all the power comes through, all of our more of ourself comes through, I should say, to our human aspect.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing time to be practicing magic in human history because I think that all of the new understandings that we're coming to, because life is becoming less about focusing on survival and more about um, like exploring ideas and new ways of doing things. And so I think it's really a great time to be a witch. And um, what was I going to say? Um, I also think that by reaching into human past it's very similar to what, say, like hybrids or other ETs are doing by reaching out to us in our
Yeah.
timeline
Yeah.
because um, it's a way of like integrating consciousness and making it more whole. Like understanding your ancestors and their ways of doing things, and even acting out some of those traditions so that you can feel closer to them is helping you become more of a like a complete human being and a more understanding human being rather than thinking that believing in what society says that we're all individuals and we're all compartmentalized and none of this is connected and it's all just
Mm.
physics and all this stuff. I think it can really help with, funny enough, reaching into the past helps with moving into the future.
Yeah, yeah, integrating all those aspects of us that, through time were sort of separated and trying to bring that back into a more cohesive sense of self, more
Mhm.
wholesome sense of self, I guess.
Yes,
So
yeah.
how did you get to kind of where you are today in terms of your knowledge and understanding and interests?
Um, yeah. So I was a lot of the perspective that I have now about my childhood and my past. I was able to um, gain that perspective through a lot of self-reflection and by exploring witchcraft it invited me to understand myself better because witchcraft ultimately is about self-empowerment. It's not about, you can work with concepts like gods, but ultimately it's about you and your personal power. So you really want to get to know yourself really well. And so through that process of wanting to get to know myself and also wanting to heal from the past, I really came to understand the bigger picture of my childhood. And I think you kind of have to reflect on that as an adult because when you're a child and your brain isn't fully developed, you don't really have an understanding of what's happening to you while it's happening to you. So a lot of the things that I felt were very normal as a kid were not. um, I had a lot of psychic um, um, gifts as a child, and I was able to see spirits, and that included, humans who had passed on, and but also elementals, thought forms, and even I had some encounters with extraterrestrials a few times, and I had a very strange childhood. And on top of that, I was experiencing different types of trauma as well. And funny enough, it made those gifts even stronger because I would kind of utilize the gifts as a way to bring me comfort or to feel like I was escaping the situation.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of just existed in this way, kind of like how a fish exists in water and doesn't really understand that it's in water. I kind of just existed that way throughout my childhood, having interests in spirituality and things like that, and experiencing my psychic gifts. And then in my 20s, I had a handful of different kinds of experiences that made me realize that I wasn't necessarily like the average person, and that that was something that was curious to me. And I did kind of explore it. I was became even more interested in spirituality, but I didn't really get into the nitty gritty of fully understanding it until my late 20s. And I, uh, I guess I did a lot of research, but I also did a lot of self reflection and incorporated modern things like psychology as well. Um, and that's kind of how I got here, I guess.
Mm. Like if what would be going back to sort of the some of the tools perhaps that can be used, what sort of tools can one use? For example, I don't know, let's choose the idea of manifesting something, some situation, some circumstance, some person into your life, or what sort of process would one go through What do you think are the key sort of steps, and what's the kind of process that you go through to do that?
Um, so there's a lot of different ways. I guess it would just depend on what you feel resonates most for you. Um, you can even do a type of prayer. Like prayer itself is kind of like spell casting. If you believe in the power of it,
Yeah.
believing is a big part of it, or understanding that it's real, even deeper than believing, you know. Um, you can also um, explore traditions that already exist. Sometimes there's a lot of power that comes with that because there's a lot of energy being put into a tradition that already exists by lots of different people. So that can be a way to kind of speed up manifestation. I say if you do want to do a tradition that already exists, I highly recommend going all the way because that's going to bring you the most potent results. A lot of people want to like mix different traditions or, you know, kind of halfway do a tradition. But I think if you're going to do it, go all the way, definitely. And you can also be like a generalize and make up your own kind of uh, ritual. I mean, humans kind of understand these things intuitively. We understand symbology and poetry. It's very similar to that. You pick things that you feel represent your thing that you're trying to manifest, kind of like making a vision board.
Mm.
And you put those things on like an altar or something like that, light some candles, say some words, and um, as long as you're really deeply feeling in your heart that what you're doing is significant and real, that's the part that's most important.
Yeah, so okay, so the rest of it is just sort of props and permission slips, but the real power comes from that sense of knowing that that truth exists. And you know what I've found really helpful, some of the the ideas around that at the moment, that there is of course no one line from past to present to future, that in fact we're in any given moment faced with many almost limitless numbers of probabilities, and we create the idea of a line from our human point of view as we progress through it. But by thinking that there's all of those probabilities out there, that from a higher level there is no real time, it's all in the present moment, just different frequencies, as many channelers say, then it makes it, for me at least, easier to sort of imagine, well, there is a version of me somewhere in this vast multiverse where that situation is happening, is real, or I'm with this person, or I own this, or I'm really happy and I'm doing this. So by sort of thinking of the multiverse theory, it it has made it much more easy for me to sort of really get into that imagination, which is the powerhouse, and then that belief, which then follows through that. But and then I guess it's just keeping that feeling going, isn't it? Because if you drop out of the frequency, you won't necessarily be a match for it if and when it comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I've resonated so much with witchcraft because I think there's an emotional, heart-centered piece to it that is similar, I think, that some people find with things like Christianity. When you believe in a higher power that is um, a creative force that's helping to make these manifestations happen, it's easier for you to feel when you do a ritual that what you're doing is a real thing and it's going to have real effects because when you make the understanding of that your reality, then you vibrate at that frequency and it's only a matter of time for your environment to reflect that vibration. So sometimes it can be easier to hold the vibration if instead of trying to analyze it from the mind and think about all the different aspects that are, you know, and mechanisms that are going into play of like making the thing happen, simplifying it, making it romantic and poetic and something that you can um, lean on like a god or a lover who you know is faithful and always going to be doing good for you. I mean, that's just one way of explaining it or painting a picture, you know. Because once you click into that faith, click into that knowing it's real, that's it, then it's just a matter of time for the
Yeah.
manifestation to come.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true, so true. What I want to go back to something you were talking about before. We're talking about prayer, because I've been listening to some different material about prayer, which is really interesting. So, in the traditional religious sense, you go to a church and you are essentially, I think, giving your power to an external consciousness or whatever you want to call it, in the hope that it grants whatever you desire to you. I think there, and that doesn't really align with all the ideas that we're talking about. And what I find fascinating is the idea that perhaps prayer is a lot more powerful. If you're basically prayer is basically stating intent within yourself, becoming that vibration where that whatever it is exists and then is attracted into your life. So it gives one a completely different concept or idea of prayer, than what, for example, I've been brought up to believe.
Mm, definitely. And there can be different ways that you can like solidify that understanding for yourself. Like for example, I've shifted the way have pray. I pray now. Like I've shifted it over the years. And once I started to really understand just how big of a role I'm playing in the creation of my life, I wanted to incorporate myself in my prayers. So when I pray now, I'll ask, you know, Creator, and I'll ask to speak. Well, I'll say I'm praying to Creator, but I'm also praying to my higher self. I'm praying to me. We're combining our energies, and I'll kind of add that to the prayer too, like that we combine our energies and we pour our energies together into this endeavor as a way to kind of acknowledge that it's a co-creation. It's like you know, the as above so below, the greater um forces work with me and I am a part of them, you know.
Hmm. So you mentioned that you kind of a grey witch, and you mentioned that that's obviously a lot about being of service, I guess, in a sense. What other types are there?
There's a lot of different types. So there's like the idea of different colors. So
Mhm.
like a white witch would be one who's more like a love and light practitioner, someone who just focuses on spreading positive vibrations, and a lot of them do healing work in particular. Um, a a black witch or a dark witch would be someone who it's usually comes from a feeling of insecurity. People who want to get into dark witchcraft, they don't feel empowered. They don't feel that they are as a human powerful enough to do all the things that they want to do. So they'll usually um, h- create a contract with more negative beings that will promise all sorts of things.
Mm,
um, they're very powerful, or they give off the appearance of being powerful. A lot of negative magic is illusion.
mm.
It's really just the only way that negative magic works on a person is if the magic achieves convincing you that that you don't have any power, that you're disempowered. That's really
Yeah,
the
I understand. It's really interesting, because we're touching here upon the sort of a certain natural laws of the universe, in a sense, because the more aligned you are with divine frequency, the more powerful you are, the more unlimited your power is through connection.
Mhm.
But of course, if you take it the other way, you're more separated, less empowered, such as those who practice more dark magic, then there are going to be big limitations on what you can truly achieve through the idea of magic. Hence, one needing to sort of call upon things like illusion, which
Right.
is yeah, it's pulling the wool over people's eyes, basically, isn't it?
Yes. You're
Mm.
basically trying to force other people's will to do what you want through fear, through the
Yeah.
illusion of fear. It can be scary, the experiences can be scary, but they can't actually hurt you. They can't actually they and sometimes the experiences can be powerful enough to cause things like, scratches, physical, like,
Mhm.
manifestations of things. But your soul, like, on a soul level, you cannot be you're incorruptible. You cannot be harmed by these things. And that's the best way to counteract dark magic is really connecting with your higher self and understanding that these things are illusions. They're like puffs of smoke. They're just a dream. It's not anything that can actually do anything to cause you on a true level any real damage.
Yeah, I see. And you beat me to it. I was going to ask that. So no, no, that's really interesting. So if somebody, yeah, yeah. So sorry, I've lost my train of thought as well. But that's amazing. So it basically tells you that what you may experience is kind of to a certain degree on some level agreed to by yourself. Like, for example, if something happened and maybe someone was less than kind to you in terms of their thoughts, maybe for something to manifest in your life that aligned with that, you'd have to sort of on some level have agreed to it for the experience and perhaps it was aligned with your themes in this life or something. I'm kind of linking to the idea of we're indestructible beings because it's very easy to think of, well, I nearly had a car accident the other day, but these experiences that we have on a human level, where obviously we have the idea of fear and that, but maybe there's deeper truth to why these things happen, bigger truth in the sense that there's a lesson, there's something to be learned from that experience, and it could open up a whole raft of new doors into new awakenings and such like, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. And I think this goes into, another benefit of having a spiritual practice or practicing witchcraft is understanding the bigger purpose of why you came here, like, specifically to Earth or specifically to third density, and understanding the themes that you wanted to learn and grow from by coming here. Like, we don't I this is a big thing that my guides have given me messages on a lot recently, because recently I broke out of a big karmic contract, one that I had spent 3 lifetimes trying to get out of, or trying to get stronger so I could break through it, And, a big thing that kept coming up as I was breaking out of it was, um, you didn't come here to have a good time, like have a vacation, or only feel bliss or only feel love. This is not what this dimension is for. It's for strengthening yourself. It's for learning. It's for expanding. It's for understanding your own power on in deeper levels. Because when you're existing in some of the higher vibrational dimensions, there's nothing to push against. There's nothing that challenges you. Those are typically dimensions of rest
Mm.
and nourishment and things like that. So places like this are here to challenge us and to help us have a deeper understanding of who we are and just how powerful we are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. Definitely. Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, there's probably so much more we could talk about on the side of magics and magic and witches and all kinds of things like that. But I think it's a very, very powerful that things are starting to be relooked at, rebadged to really sort of bring into the modern world and take what resonates and assists people moving forward and helps them open up and reclaim some of, I think, what we lost.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, so thank you so much for giving that introduction into it. Um, we've got more to talk about, so we're going to talk about ETs and things like that in part two. So I'll very much look forward to that. But thank you so much, Autumn, for your time today.
Thank you for having me, James. It was great to talk with you and to share all of this.
Yeah, and talk to you real soon.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.